Hello everyone, this is Mr. Enyart with grade 6, module 4, lesson 31 of Eureka Math. A lot in here, but lots of fun, so stick around. Let's get to it. All right, guys, lesson 31 in module 4, grade 6, Eureka Math introduces a couple new terms, and they are independent variable and dependent variable. It's going to review a few things we already know, like what an equation is and how we can use an equation to solve problems. So let's look at t equals 30d and this situation. So you can pause the video, make sure you read it, try and solve on your own, and then I'll give a good explanation as to how you decide which variable is independent and which is dependent. All right, so I'm assuming you've read, you've thought about it and jumped in, and I'm going to take you through my thought process and go over the vocabulary as well. So we have found out that Marcus reads a certain amount each night, and he simply wants to track how much he reads over a course of time, preferably 30 days, right? Because it said 1 month. But for right now, we're just going to take it one day at a time for 7 days, because the question at the end said to create a table to show how many minutes he has read in the first 7 days. So we're just going to go for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, and obviously his amount of time will change based on how many days he has read. And then another thing that I did is I rewrote the problem in a way that makes more sense. And I rewrote it for you to see. I might just do this in my head, but I highly suggest you try and do this. I've talked many times about math being a language, and you need to understand it. And sometimes the way something is explained may not be how you would state it or explain it. And when you reword things into your own language, it makes more sense and it sticks better. So I rewrote this. This is how I say this problem in my head. I say time spent reading is however many days I read times 30. They say t equals 30d. But when I see that, again, what I'm seeing is that my total time spent is depending on how many days I'm reading times 30. Did you hear what I just said? I'll say it again. My time spent reading depends on my days times 30. So my days stand alone. They're by themselves, even though it looks like they're touching the 30, they are the thing that drives or creates my time spent reading. And so that is what's really by itself. That's what's really independent. So my independent variable, which is what this question asks, is my days, or D. And the dependent variable, which, remember, to be dependent means you need someone else to do something for you. You can't figure out time spent reading if you don't know how many days they've read. Does that make sense? You need to know days has to be in there all by itself. Then you multiply it by 30, and that is what gets you to your time spent reading. So time spent reading depends on the days. Therefore, the time spent reading is the dependent variable. So another way of thinking about this is when you have an equation like this, what are you going to be plugging in? When you have t equals 30d, what are you going to be plugging in? You're going to be plugging in the d, right? This is what you're inputting into the equation. You're going to put this in. You're going to put this into the equation. And by putting it into the equation, you can see independent starts with in, right? And so you're putting the independent variable into the equation to solve for the output, what you get as a result. And that result, right, the outcome, I guess I should spell it right, the outcome or the output is called the dependent variable. So these are ways you can remember what independent and dependent variable are. And so now let's finish our table. If he read for 1 day, that would be 30 minutes of reading, right? We already said that, 30 minutes each night, so one night would be 30 minutes. And that would be 1 day times 30, right? If my day was 1 times 30 would get me 30 minutes read. And then 2 times 30 would be 60, and then 90 we go to 120, we go to 150, 180, and finally 210 minutes total read. And so you can see each of those just plug into our original equation, and the thing we're putting in, right? The input, the independent variable, is our days, and the outcome, the result, our dependent variable, is our time spent. So before the problem set, where I'm just going to give answers, and I want you to do it by yourself first, try it all, then check with this video. Do not use the video for your answers. You're not learning that way. Reword things, rewrite things, experiment with things. Then once you have something, right or wrong, then check it and reflect. Did you do it right? What mistakes did you make? What weren't you understanding? Until you find yourself understanding it. So the exercise number 1. So 12 pencils per pack. We're going to use the n equals 12p as our equation. As you can see here, I have written out what I read it as. I read it as the number of pencils depends on the number of packages times 12. So I can now determine the variable that is dependent and the variable that is independent. The one that I am plugging in to get my output, I'm plugging it into it as my input into the equation, is going to be my packages. The number of packages are what drive the entire thing, right? So I'm going to put P first in my table. And then what do I get out? What's my output? What do I get as a result of buying a certain number of packages? A number of pencils. So these are dependent upon how many packages I buy, and therefore n are my dependent variables. So I'm just going to say dependent up here. I know that doesn't look like very good handwriting. And independent here. And then over here I'll plug in that my independent variable was p and my dependent variable was n. And now I'm just going to fill out the table according to the directions it gave me, which is 3 to 7 packages. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And remember, according to my equation, all I'm doing is I'm taking those packages times 12, and I'll get my number. So 3 times 12, 36, 48, 60, 72, and 84. Okay, so again, pause the video, make sure you do all the problem set. I'm just basically going to throw in the answers here with a very quick explanation for the next 6 problems. So if you're still not getting it, try to rewatch the first section of this video. Okay, question 1. We had t equals 3m for months times 3 gets you the total made or total sold houses by Josiah. So our independent or our inputted, our driving force in our equation is m, however many months, depends on how many total houses sold. And so our dependent variable is t, our independent is m, and our table would look like this, times 3 across. For number 2 and for the rest, I might set them up this way where I have a place to write my equation. I'm usually always going to put my independent variable first because that's going to get me my dependent, and we read left to right, so it just makes more sense in our brain. And then I will fill out my table according to the equation that I write or the variables that I am using. And here's the final version of number 2. We have an equation of m equals 25d. And our deep independent variable is days, right? That's what we're inputting. And so if I read for 1 day, I would get out, or what's dependent on the days is my minutes. So you can see each thing in my table is times 25 going across. Again, independent variable is days, dependent variable is months, or sorry, minutes. Okay, number 3, to check your work, equation is b equals 8p. Your independent variable is p, your dependent variable is b, and your table goes from 3 to 8 packages, and then you take each thing times 8 to find your number of buns. So remember to pause the video, do 4 and 5 and 6, because you're about to just see a bunch of answers. Here we go. All right, number one, our equation is that S, the seashells total, is going to be 3 per week plus the 5 seashells she was originally given. Did you get that? So weeks is our independent variable, and my table goes from 4 to 10 weeks as the question stated. And then my total seashells depends on that. So 4 weeks would be 4 times 3, plus my 5 original would give me 17 total seashells, etc. For number 5, our equation is T being our total cost is 75 cents. There's a little decimal there, 0.75p per pepper. So 75 cents per pepper plus the $5 watermelon. So P is my independent variable because it's what I'm inputting. And 1 pepper would be $5.75 because 1 times 0.75 plus my $5 watermelon. So I also put a in dollar sign up here so that you would know all these numbers represents money. That might be helpful. And our final question, T is our total cost, our total amount made, and it's $1.25 per mile, so that's 1.25 M, plus the $7 flat fee. So our mileage is the independent variable, and the mileage will depict how much we make, and so T, our total cost, is our independent variable. So 4 miles through 10 is what it asked. So 4 miles times 1.25 is going to be $5. $5 plus the $7 flat fee gives us $12, etc.